continuations on a theme that we've had today with Joanna talking about how to mirror the words that your users are telling you, and Allie talking to us about it as well. And so what I'm going to talk to you is about interviewing and how to get people to say things to you that are really useful and are going to help you grow your business. So before I was half of the Geocodio team, with the other half being over there, Matthias, I was a corporate product manager, and I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people about their financial lives. Very sensitive things, everything from 25-year-olds to how they make decisions about which stocks to buy, to 85-year-olds who are worried about making sure there's enough money for their spouse to be left over when they die. And the thing about this is that it works for any kind of product. It can be a consumer product, it can be a B2B product, it can be a course, it can be a physical product, it can be a service. And you can even get really great information from people if you don't have a lot of time. So it was mentioned how at past conferences, which I wasn't at because this is my first time, that people talked about doing interviews, and it's so great if you can invest the time in doing really long hour interviews and get them transcribed and do card sorting, and that's great if you have a huge team for this. But you can get great information out of people in a half an hour, 15 minutes, even shorter than that. And I'll tell you an example. A couple weeks ago, I was at the grocery store, and I was just checking out, had like 20 items, and I noticed the cashier that she hugged the woman in front of me. And I thought that was kind of odd, and maybe I had just been interviewing someone, so I was in the mode for this. And I was like, oh, is that your sister? And I just kind of started a friendly conversation with her. And without even realizing it, I sort of started interviewing her. And in the 4 minutes it took her to check out my groceries, I had learned that she'd worked for the company for 25 years. They used to have pensions, but then the company got bought out, and they have issues with the unions. Now they have 401ks. She's worried that her Social Security won't cover all of it. And I was like, do I have something written on my forehead that says, tell me about your retirement? And I was talking about this with a friend of mine who I'd learned interviewing from, and she said, no, it's just all in how you ask the questions is how you get that pain from people to get the really useful information. So you have probably heard this phrase before about finding the pain. And this is why people often say that you should interview people who have just bought your product or they have just canceled it, because their emotion is on the surface. They remember why they bought it, and they're really excited that you're going to solve their problem. Or they just canceled it because they don't have that problem anymore, or you didn't solve it and they're annoyed about it. But I have found some of the best feedback I have gotten is really useful is from people who've been using a product for years. And if you can just sit down with them for a short period of time, you can get that information from them. But first, I want to talk about why we even care about people's pain. And so this is a framework that I reference all the time from Des Traynor of Intercom. And basically, it's the pain frequency matrix. Basically, the idea is that when you're talking to someone, you're getting feedback from someone, your surveys, you want to find the problems they have that are frequent and painful, because those are things they're going to be aware of all the time that they want solved. There are good opportunities in the low pain, high frequency category, and also in high pain, low frequency. So for example, buying a house is in that low frequency. Like if you're lucky, you do it once, maybe twice in your life, but it's so incredibly complicated. But so you want to find those high pain, high frequency users, things that your users are doing. So the key to getting really useful feedback, it doesn't have to do with the questions you ask, it doesn't have to do with how often, it doesn't have much analysis, it's all in how you act. Because you need to set up an environment with the person where they feel comfortable telling you their pain. If they don't feel comfortable sharing their struggles with you, which is, let's face it, we walk up to someone and say, hey, how are you doing? And we expect them to say something positive. We don't go, hey, how are you struggling today? So you need to act in a way that allows your customer to feel vulnerable and open with you, and then they will tell you those things that are painful for them. And as the example in the grocery store shows, it only takes a couple minutes if you ask the right way. And so I was talking about this with a friend a couple weeks ago, and they were saying that it's kind of like improv. And when you're on the stage doing improv, no matter crazy thing the other person says, no matter whatever costume they're wearing, you have to say yes and. You have to build on what they have said. You can't negate them. Because if you do, in a way, it's kind of like dancing. If you try to change the direction, you're just going to end up in a jumbled mess on the floor, and you're not going to really get anything out of it. So instead, when you're talking to a user, it is not a conversation. You are acting, and it is improv, and you are just there to absorb whatever they are telling you, no matter how outlandish or complicated or stupid it may seem. So here are a couple of rules for when you're talking to someone. Whatever they say goes. If they say your product's name wrong, don't correct them. If they tell you your product doesn't function correctly, don't try to explain to them how, like what you were thinking when you built it like that, or how it should work. Whatever they say has to go. You just have to go with it. So that's the other thing. Don't defend or explain anything. Again, you're setting up the environment where they are the one in control, where you are just this sponge that is absorbing whatever they are saying. And you cannot negate them in any way. You cannot interrupt them. You cannot correct them. Because in order for them to tell you what their pain is, and for them to tell you about those really painful, frequent things that they're doing that are going to help you know which landing page copy to write, or know which features to add, they need to feel like they can be open with you. And so there are two specific ways that I suggest that you should talk to your users, and it doesn't even have to be all that often. I probably do interviews with people, which are over the phone, maybe once or twice a week. And it's probably about half an hour each time. You can do these with a lot of different types of customers. And what you're doing here is you're trying to learn about their process. And so what your product is inevitably one step in their process, and you want to find out what the other pieces are. You can also observe them, also called usability testing. And the giant research firm Nielsen says that you will get 80% of the feedback you need from only 5 people. And I suggest doing this when you have a discrete problem. So for example, you have a landing page, you spent so much time on it, and it's not converting. Put it in front of 5 people. Give them a $10 Amazon gift card for going through this, and see what they think, and see if what they think matches what you intended to put there. So when you're doing interviews, and for those of you fans of The Good Place, this might look a lot like Jeremy Bury Me. So this is their process. And let's say this is the end thing that they are trying to do. And it doesn't have to be something lofty, like being a better person. It could be, for example, Jaron Steffens over there. He has an online butcher shop business. And a great customer for him is moms who are making school lunches. They just want to get their kid lunch. That is what they're trying to accomplish. And our product is right there. That's awesome. And it turns out there are all these other steps along the process. And then as we talk to them, as we are absorbing from them what their process is, we learn, oh, the step right before our product is super manual and time consuming. That's interesting. Maybe that's something we could build. We could make it easier for them. There's this crazy complicated process down here. Maybe we can help with that somehow. The step right after us is super expensive. Okay, if we can do that cheaper, they would probably switch to us and use our product more. And then this step before the manual one, they also hate it, and it takes forever, and they've got like a team of 5 people who are doing it manually. That is a fantastic product opportunity for us. And so we can use all of this information about their process to write landing pages, write new courses, build new products, talk about our products in different ways. When we're talking to someone, this is actually something I was doing usability testing on last week. It's a new product we're building, and this is the landing page we made for it. And before we built the functionality on the page, we wanted to see, what do people think this should do? So the first question you ask, and this is the question you ask every single time when you're doing usability and putting this in front of someone, is take a look at this page and tell me what you're looking at. What do you think you can do here? What do you think this product does? And then you just listen to them. And you let them go on. And something really important when you're doing interviews or you're doing this is actually a trick that Terry Gross of NPR uses, which is that when you think someone is done talking, wait a second, and then wait another second until it's uncomfortable, and they will fill the space. And they will fill it with something that is really, really insightful because you gave them the space to say that. The next thing you want to ask, let's say, looking at this button, what would you expect to happen if you clicked it? We've heard so many interesting things we never even realized people would want to do that make so much sense. And then after they click it, you say, is that what you expected would happen? Again, this gives you really good information about what they are hoping, in this case, a website will do. The last question you want to ask is, what would your next step be? And this can be so critical because it's also telling you about their process. So for example, last year we launched a HIPAA-compliant version of our product. And we'd been list building for years. We thought we had all this energy for it. And then we launched it, and there wasn't quite as much attention as we hoped for. And I was like, you know what, let me just do some quick usability testing with the landing page. There must be something that we missed. And it turned out the next step, which we hadn't anticipated, was for them to talk to their legal department and for their legal department to take 6 months reviewing it, which when you're bootstrapping a company and you need everything to be profitable, that is a really, really long amount of time. We knew compliance would be involved, but we didn't know how crazy it would be. So that's basically it for me. If you want to hear more about this, please grab me after. I love talking about this. But the one thing you take away from this is when you're talking to users, you are not having a conversation. You are not yourself. You are acting. And if you act in the right way, your users will give you truly useful information that can really help you grow.